Hello, everyone. Welcome to our online video series, Reading Hope in Trying Times. Our guest today is Willard Ashley. Willard is Vice President of Community Relations, Director of the Center for Clergy Care, and Associate Professor of Practical Theology at New Brunswick Theological Seminary. In July 2012, he was granted tenure and appointed by President Greg Mast as the first African-American dean of the seminary in the 225-year history of the seminary. As the CEO of Dr. Willard Ashley Sr., he conducts seminars, counseling, and coaching. Willard is the founder and senior pastor of the Abundant Joy Community Church in Jersey City, New Jersey. He's served as the pastor for over 36 years at various congregations. Willard is on the board of Andover Newton Seminary at Yale Divinity School. He's vice chair of the Bergen County Human Relations Commission and is a New Jersey state certified and nationally certified psychoanalyst. Dr. Ashley has published numerous books and chapters. His latest book is due out this fall from Judson Press, called Rules for 21st Century Radicals. Dr. Ashley has enjoyed an impressive media presence, which included hosting a weekly program on Black entertainment television and a regular on the radio in New York City. So, Willard, it's really great to have you here today. Appreciate you taking some time to join us.
Thank you. It's good to be here. I appreciate the time to talk together and to kind of reflect on the craziness of this pandemic and the sadness of the people that are losing their lives and watching the politicians go at it. And so thank you for allowing me to have this time to reflect and to share.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's always good to see you, Willard. So yeah, why don't you tell us more about how it's impacted you, how you've seen this whole thing impact the country at large?
I've been looking at this threefold paradigm as far as the pandemic goes, looking at it through the lens of personal, pastoral, and prophetic. And all three are in play at the same time, all the time. So on a personal level, I've lost close colleagues, I've lost friends. I've been fortunate, no one that in my immediate family has been impacted adversely. But my son, on his side of the family, he's lost an uncle, he's lost some cousins, and so it's been really tough for him. On the personal side, it's been tough because my son works for a major corporation, and he was considered essential, so he's been going to work every day since the pandemic into New York City in Midtown.
Wow.
So, yeah, exactly. He's been on my prayer list every day. I check in, how you feeling, kind of go through the whole kind of father checklist, so to speak. And so I'm always anxious, and I know he takes every precaution, but still things happen.
Sure.
So on a personal level, it's been a challenge. I guess it's been a challenge personally because on the other hand, my wife is a physician, and so she's been very much involved, not in the hospital, but in terms of policy, in terms of looking at the overall picture through the health lens. And what does this mean for us as citizens? So almost never rest, between being the pastor and the analyst and the professor. Then you come home and your wife's a physician, so you're dealing with, it's always coming at us.
All sides of it, yeah.
All sides of it. So that personal piece kind of feeds into the pastoral piece. Being a pastor of a congregation in Jersey City, it has forced us to kind of look at life through a different lens, like everybody else, but from the standpoint of feeling compassion for my congregants, feeling the courage to stand up for them in ways that I have a voice that they may not have, and just being a presence. I mean, I think all of us should have earned a PhD in Zoom. And this
exactly.
So between individual meetings with clergy, with my congregation, I mean, we're learning how to do worship on Zoom, and it's great in some respects and frustrating in others. I mean, sometimes I prepare this great sermon, at least I think it's a great sermon, prepare this really good Zoom presentation on my PowerPoint, and it freezes. What do you do about it? I mean, you just have to.
Yeah.
So usually, I know it's been my experience, I hear my colleagues the same thing, that our congregants are forgiving of us. They get it. It's technology. We can only do what we can do. And so we laugh about it. News getting all upset. Oh my God, the slide didn't change over. The voices gargled. You can't hear me or whatever. So we get through it. And what I've learned is that it's not as important that you have the great PowerPoint presentation. This is the best sermon you've ever preached in your whole life. It's the connection. It's checking in, saying, "Are you okay? How's it going? I care about you. How's your experience right where you live?" And so the sermon is good, but they really want to know that somebody cares about me. Someone's looking after me. I'm not just another face in the crowd. If you don't see me on Sunday in the pews, then you don't know who I am. So that has been a learning part from the pastoral perspective. I mean, we talk about it and we even teach it, the value of presence, but it takes on a different dimension when the presence is this screen. And so from a pastoral perspective, I've also learned that sometimes it can be a little too intense. In my other hat as a psychoanalyst, I've realized that unlike when I'm in face to face, I can't do 90 minutes with a couple. I tried it a few times, it didn't work. So I said, we'll renegotiate the fee, but I can do 45 minutes on the screen, you in my face, but I can't do 90 minutes. And maybe others can do that, but just for me, I found it was just too intense.
Interesting.
And so you know, we're learning from the pastoral standpoint. I'm learning that some of my seniors can't do Zoom for a number of different reasons, but they pick up the phone and we can talk on the phone. They can hear us through the phone, so that's helpful. I think through a pastoral lens, just looking at the different ways that different municipalities respond to the pandemic, clearly the way different governors in different states respond. And so like being in two or three worlds, living in New Jersey, family that live in New York metropolitan area. And then I've been very involved in webinars with multi-faith clergy around the country, actually around the world, and hearing their stories and hearing their challenges and realizing that in a real sense, without being narcissistic about it, I'm being a pastor to pastors, or at least a therapist to pastors. Maybe I'll say it that way. And they're saying, you know, we have to bring hope on Sunday, but we're struggling. We need to be positive to get folks through it, but we're having our own challenges. I'm asking you to be my therapist. I don't need you to be my therapist, but I need you to be my friend and to help me to get through this difficult time. And so we use the term coaching. So I do a lot of coaching, quote unquote. I say, no, I'm not your psychoanalyst. You know, I'm not that role. Although knowing a little bit about the human mind clearly informs how we coach, wink, wink. But I'm not doing the Freudian stuff with you. That's a different conversation, somebody else. But I can kind of help you through with the things that you're conscious about. Feeling depressed, feeling anxious, being angry, feeling fearful, wondering when we begin to reopen, what will that look like? You know, we've had these really deep conversations. So friends of mine say, you know, normally the choir stands behind me and they sing their heart out. Given what I know about the virus, I want the choir behind me now projecting. Hey, and it's a real question, and I get it.
Sure.
We're beginning to open up in places in New Jersey, and theoretically they're 6 feet apart, and they got the pews marked and so forth and so on. We made a decision in our congregation not to open at this time. We have, for the most part, an older congregation. If I open the doors, they'll show up. And I'm not so sure that I really want them to have to show up to church on Sunday at this point. And given that we figured out the Zoom, we figured out Sunday virtual worship, I think for at least for a while, we're going to stick with that format. And we'll be probably one of the last ones to say, okay, open up the doors. We were actually one of the first ones to say, let's close the doors. And it was interesting. A number of my colleagues were very critical and thought that we had pulled the trigger too fast. And I said, no, I know my congregation, and I think I know my way around. And so, thank God, we've only lost one person, very significant person, but still, the losses have been minimal for us in that regard. And so, we're very thankful, knowing that there have been other congregations that have lost multiple people.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's part of the
Well, good for you.
pastoral. Yeah, and then the other thing, as we start thinking about reopening, and I've been kind of being agitational with my colleagues, is, did you talk to your lawyer and your insurance company? And they go, huh? I said, because, people are going to be very angry. Here we go, the analyst person. They're going to be very angry. They can't take it out on the president or the governors or the mayor for the most part. So guess who's the target? You. And in some cases, they have something to say. You didn't close the doors. You had this event. I got sick. I lost someone. Being the communities that we are, we're going to call the lawyers. We're going to sue. I spoke to some insurance companies, and they says, well, here's what this person says. We're going to tell you what we're going to cover. Okay, so you make the decision. You want to open your doors. That's on you. But here's what we're going to cover. So it's your choice. You want to write checks and somebody sues you, God bless you, but we're only going to cover this. So I think part of it's just being sensible. And you can say, yeah, I can open my doors. I miss touching everything. I mean, if we get sued, we can wipe out the bank account and worse. Let's wait till we get the green light, so to speak, that it's safe under the law, and the lawyers can defend it, the insurance companies can cover it, and so forth. So that's the pastoral piece. The prophetic piece has really taken up more time than I expected it would, because it has just been all-consuming. So one, about the reports of the disparities in access and care and response just being taken serious, because it seems as though there are people that are asymptomatic that tend to fall in the category of being Latinx or Black. And so because they don't have a fever, the hospital turns them away. Because they don't have the outward symptoms, they get turned away. Then fast forward a few days later, they can't breathe and they're dead. And people say, what happened? Well, what happened was that they didn't give symptoms the way that was everybody's supposed to be showing their symptoms, and so they were ignored. When I go up against my medical colleagues and friends, and they give me a hard time about that, and I say, just remember Serena Williams, highly trained, highly tuned athlete, goes to the doctor, says something's wrong with me. They say, no, you don't know what you're talking about. So she got the proverbial Black girl treatment that my sisters, that so many of my relatives and my congregants, they get, because they don't take them seriously. So the prophetic part is making sure that there's access to testing, that there's, once the vaccine is available, they have access to get the vaccine. But in the interim, we've been having this ongoing fight with the governor of New Jersey and his cabinet, because they had promised that they were going to test and give early release to low crime inmates. And at the same time, they would test the staff, which is very important for us. It has not happened with the speed, nor the accuracy, nor the attention or urgency that we think it should. So we've been going back and forth with this. And so yesterday, my colleague, one of my other pastoral colleagues in Jersey City, and I tweeted that we hope the governor will act, and in acting that he'll fire the people that have been slow to respond to what he said he wanted to have done. To our dismay, but not unpredictable, he was upset that we asked for people to be fired. And so our response was, wait a minute, you're upset because these people should be fired. We're upset because people are dying. Getting fired, dying, fired, dying, dying, fired, huh?
Yeah,
Let's
really.
see. Real, are we having this conversation? So that's been the prophetic part of it. We know that in organizing, that there's no permanent enemies, no permanent allies. And so we've had people that normally would be on the other side of an argument with us joining, saying, you're right. We're concerned about the staff at the prison. We want to make sure that they're tested. We want to make sure that they're safe, because they go home every night. And and as you know, you've seen the horrific numbers of positive results of inmates. And so if the CEOs are there all day with them, guess what? They go home and they spread it. So that's been like the prophetic piece in a very real way. Part of the prophetic piece has also been a year from now, and we discover whatever the new normal is going to be. What will your congregation look like? What will your community look like a year from now? And so we keep asking ourselves, what are we learning through this pandemic? What is God teaching us? What lessons will we slow to learn that are now just front and center, and we have to deal with them? So that's been my COVID-19 piece, personal, pastoral, and prophetic. And here we are.
Wow, that's really great to have those three different frameworks, for you to think about this and act, in ways to respond to all this. So I appreciate you sharing that with us. That's really valuable way to think of all of this. So one of the things we've been talking about in this series is, kind of how God supported us in times past, when we had to go through various challenges, and how we were able to draw on that now. So what are your thoughts on that?
I'm in this space where, in the midst of the horror, in the midst of this pandemic, and all the anxiety and fears, that I feel closer to God than I have in a long time. And part of that has been that God has opened up some doors, has closed some other doors, but it's been very clear for me, just trust God through this process. Just trust God as you're going through this. And there's so many different ways and places where I can see that it wasn't because I have a degree, it wasn't because I know the right people, live at the right address, that it clearly was the hand of God that was saying, don't do this instead. So, for example, I had a book contract. I was all set to write this book, Rules for 21st Century Radicals. I was excited. Ended up having 3 eye surgeries, tried my best to write the book as my eye was healing. It just wasn't happening. And finally, I had to make a decision. Do you honor the contract and maybe mess up your eye? Realize you can't have 3 eye surgeries and try to write a book. That's not happening.
I didn't realize.
So I took a deep breath, said I can't make the deadline. It's the right of the company. And I said, well, therefore we're going to cancel the contract. Thanks, have a nice life. And so I went through 20 days of feeling bad, probably some level of depression. Colleague of mine says, well, did you try this company? And tell them what happened. I had a contract, I had eye surgery, I couldn't finish it, da 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 da. Long story short, by day 21, I had a new contract.
Awesome. That's wonderful.
But here's the other part of it, that's the God piece. Given the content, Rules for 21st Century Radicals, had the book come out when it was initially scheduled, it would have missed the greatest pandemic in our lifetime. And in some respects, been somewhat irrelevant. Like, you're talking about organizing, and here we are in the middle of this pandemic, and you're silent on how do you organize, or silent altogether on the coronavirus. So looking at through that lens, like, gee, God, it didn't feel good at the time. Now look at this. I can now include in the book, how do you organize in the midst of this pandemic to give people some thought around some choices of dealing with real live political prophetic scenarios in the midst of this. So I just felt like that's like the hand of God. And I've reached the age and stage in my life where I'm mid 60s. And I've said to some people, maybe it's a low bar, but it's my bar. If I wake up in the morning, not a lot of pain, it's a great day.
Yeah.
If I leave the house and I come back in one piece, it's a wonderful day.
There you go. Well, that's what I'm so glad about what we're talking about in terms of your book contract. I mean, I totally agree with you. I mean, now being able to incorporate, the significant change that we've all, gone through, and use that to make the book that much more relevant is just really wonderful.
Yeah. And I remind myself of your acronym, the rights, and said, oh, this definitely relevant. Is definitely going to be timely now, and I'm working my best to make it superior. So I mean,
all right,
I have enough jokes in there, so it'll be entertaining. So there you go.
Excellent. Oh, very cool. I'm very happy about that. Lemonade out of lemons, right?
There you go.
So, what kinds of books or spiritual practices or other resources would you recommend for folks to take advantage of now?
So, for one, I think to be mindful of your surroundings and to just take it all in. whether you live in an urban environment and you're surrounded by projects and tenement buildings and skyscrapers, or you're in the suburbs or some rural area, to be more mindful of the beauty that's around us. I'm more in touch and look out the window from my desk, the trees that have been there, but I see the trees differently now. To be mindful of the not just the grass, but the blades of grass, and look what God has created. And I grew up in an urban environment. I grew up in Harlem, in New York City, and even in growing up in Harlem, you know, there were places, there were parks, there were trees, there were ways we could take a walk and look at nature, look at what God has done and what God is doing in your regards. I think just being able to be mindful of our surroundings and find the beauty in the midst of all the devastation and the death. I think that's one thing. Second thing is I encourage people to unplug, and that's kind of hard between Zoom and telephones and smartphones and CNN and Fox News and all the other talking head shows. The, at some point, just say, you know what, my body can only take but so much of this. It's an assault, and to just simply unplug. I'm finding more and more relaxation and watching old comedy shows and listening to old comedy movies, and some I can't say because I'm a pastor, but anyway, that's another conversation. But, but just listening to things that make you laugh, and to try to find in the midst of all that's devastating, that to find some humor. You may not be able to laugh at the obviously people dying, but to find other ways that can just bring a smile to your face. And I think also to just be kind. Being a New Yorker, that's a stretch for us. Okay,
Oh, that's not for you. I know that.
that's not part of. I had to work at it though. That's not part of our vocabulary. That's not in our DNA. And so having to be kind to people and recognize that just like you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, neither does the next person. Just like you're anxious, all of us are anxious. Somebody sneezes, we all get our back up now, like, whoa, what's going on here? We're all going through that. So to be kind to people, I'm seeing more and more through the lens of analysts, people being more aggressive, tend to be a little more towards violent now. And I get it. People are restless, they're tired, they're anxious, all that. So just to practice being kind. And like you were saying earlier, to really, really, really lean on our spiritual disciplines. So if you're a Bible person, if the Bible is your source of sacred literature, to read it and to find comfort in there. To read the Bible, if you're a Christian, through the lens of there's a lot of lament obviously in the Psalms in particular, and to embrace it. That yeah, this is a time of weeping and everything's not rosy. I get it, but be able to give yourself permission to be in a space of lament, to cry, to be upset, to be angry. So to use your sacred literature, to pray if prayer is your what you do, or to meditate if you're a person that's into meditation, mindfulness, yoga, just things to relax your body. And I think for all of us, but particularly people of the Black diaspora, to get out into the sun because it has vitamin D. And so what we hear, vitamin D is supposed to be helpful. If nothing else, we do know that just being out in the sun has a tendency to change your mood. We know that when it's dark and dreary and cloudy, we're like, when it's sunshiny and so forth. I guess why the folks in California are always kind of bubbly for the most part, right? Because they're out there in that California sun. So we give a shout out to the California folks. But just to get out and it, it's good for us. It helps out, the air and so forth and everything. So just get out there and enjoy yourself in that regard. Now, what I'm finding is a good time to catch up on your reading. So that mountain of books that you're going to get to one day, this is one day.
Now's a good time.
That someday list, this is now that someday. So I think those are some of the things that I would suggest. Oh, and of course, you got to wear your mask. I have my mask. and if necessary, wear gloves and so forth. And somewhere over here it is. I have my no-touch thermometer, so we're ready.
There you go. Well, I love, all those pieces of advice, but, the one in particular about laughing, and having some distraction from all of the seriousness that, is unavoidable. I think is really, really important, really wise.
Well, I think also, but being a clergy person, it's always very serious, and it is serious. I mean, I get it. We delve in life and death. I'm not minimizing that, but like you said, you got to find some humor and stuff. If nothing else, I say laugh at yourself. 'Cause everybody else is.
There you go. Well, Willard, it was really great to spend some time with you. I appreciate you taking the time, and always it's a wonderful conversation. So thanks so much for joining.
Thank you. Thank you. Good.